The graveyard of forgotten sons. The workshop at the edge of nothing. Jack Rivera wiped grease from his hands and stared at the dying star through his workshop window. The star pulsed weakly, its light fading like a candle in the wind. This was Sector 79, the graveyard where old stars came to die. Most species avoided this place. They said it was cursed, that the death energy from dying stars drove people mad. Jack didn't believe in curses. He believed in work. His workshop floated in the dead space between 3 dying suns. It was a simple structure cobbled together from salvaged ship parts and asteroid metal. The sign outside read, "Rivera's Repair Shop, we fix anything." That last part was important. Anything meant anything. Most of his customers were desperate traders whose ships had broken down in this dangerous sector. He fixed their engines, patched their hulls, and sent them on their way. The pay was decent. The solitude was better. Jack had been alone for 5 years now. Ever since the accident on Mars Colony that had killed his crew. Ever since he decided that machines were easier to understand than people. Machines didn't lie. They didn't betray. They simply broke. And if you knew what you were doing, you could fix them. The visitor who changed everything. The alarm chimed, indicating an approaching ship. Jack looked up from the engine he was rebuilding. Visitors were rare in Sector 79. Most people who came here were running from something or too desperate to care about the dangers. The ship that appeared on his sensors was unlike anything he had seen before. It was massive, shaped like a crystal flower, with energy signatures that made his instruments go haywire. The hull material registered as older than Earth itself. Jack's hands froze on his tools. He recognized that design from history files. Celestial, the ancient race that had built the first star bridges. The species had disappeared 10,000 years ago, leaving behind only ruins and legends. But Celestials were extinct. Everyone knew that. The crystal ship docked at his workshop with impossible grace. Jack grabbed his plasma wrench just in case and made his way to the airlock. When the door opened, he nearly dropped the wrench. She was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Her skin seemed to be made of living starlight, shifting through colors that didn't have names. Her eyes were deep as galaxies, ancient and sad. She wore robes that looked like they were woven from pure energy. "You are the human called Jack Rivera," she said. Her voice sounded like music played on instruments that no longer existed. "The one who fixes things that others say cannot be fixed." Jack swallowed hard. "That's what the sign says." She stepped into his workshop, moving with a grace that made gravity seem optional. "My name is Astra. I am the last of the Celestials, and I need your help to fix something that has been broken for 10,000 years. The impossible request." Jack led Astra into his workshop, very aware of how shabby it must look to someone from a species that had built wonders across the galaxy. She didn't seem to notice or care. Her attention was focused entirely on him. "What needs fixing?" Jack asked, setting down his wrench and trying to sound professional. Astra gestured toward the dying star visible through the window. "That, and the others like it, all across the galaxy. Stars are dying before their time. The network that sustains them is failing. If it collapses completely, billions of worlds will freeze and die." Jack blinked. "You want me to fix a star?" "I want you to fix the system that keeps stars alive," Astra corrected. "The celestial network. My people built it at the dawn of the universe. We wove connections between all stars, allowed them to share energy, to support each other. When one star grew weak, others would sustain it. It was our gift to the universe. Life eternal and abundant." She paused, pain flickering across her face. "But my people grew arrogant. We believed we were immortal, invincible. We stopped maintaining the network. And when the Great Plague came, it killed us all. Everyone except me. I was in stasis, sleeping through the death of my species. When I woke, I found myself alone in a universe that had forgotten us." Jack sat down slowly. "Why come to me? You're a celestial. Your technology is millions of years ahead of anything humans have." "Because I cannot fix it alone," Astra said simply. "The network requires something I no longer possess. It requires the touch of a species that still knows how to hope. The Celestials became so advanced that we forgot the simple joy of creation. We forgot what it meant to build something with our own hands, to take pride in work well done. She looked at Jack with those galaxy-deep eyes. But humans, remember, I have watched your species from afar. You are young, primitive by galactic standards. Yet you fix what others discard. You build wonders from scraps. You find solutions that ancient races miss because they are too complicated in their thinking. The weight of the universe. Jack stood and walked a window, staring at the dying star. He thought about what Astra was asking. Fix a system that kept stars alive. Save billions of worlds. It was insane. It was impossible. It was also the most important thing he would ever do. I'm just a mechanic, he said quietly. I fix engines and patch holes. I work with metal and circuits. I don't know anything about stars or ancient networks. You know about systems, Astra said, coming to stand beside him. You understand how parts work together, how energy flows, how to find the weak point and make it strong again. That is all the network needs. Someone who can see it not as a divine creation, but as a machine. A very large, very complex machine, yes, but still just a machine that can be fixed. Jack turned to look at her. How long do we have? 3 months, Astra replied. Maybe 4. After that, the network will collapse completely. The cascade will be unstoppable. Every star in the galaxy will begin dying at once. Within a decade, all advanced life will be extinct. 3 months. Jack had fixed a colony ship's fusion reactor in 3 days once. He had rebuilt a crashed freighter's navigation system in a week. But this was beyond anything he had ever attempted. What do I need to know? He asked. Astra smiled, and for a moment, the sadness in her eyes lifted. Everything. Come with me to my ship. I will show you the network's heart, the central hub that controls all others. It lies at the galaxy's core in a place your people call the dead zone. The dead zone? Jack repeated. That's where ships go to disappear. The gravitational forces alone will crush anything that gets close. Not if you know the safe paths, Astra said. I know them. My people created them. Trust me, Jack Rivera. I will get you there safely. And once we arrive, your real work begins. Jack looked around his workshop, at the tools he had collected over the years, at the projects half finished on his workbenches, at the life he had built in isolation, safe from hurt and loss. Then he looked at Astra, at the hope in her ancient eyes, at the weight of a universe resting on her shoulders. She could have gone to any species in the galaxy. The powerful hierarchies with their war fleets, the wise Mentari with their vast knowledge, the wealthy Pluton traders who could buy entire planets. But she had come to a human mechanic in a junk shop at the edge of nowhere, because sometimes the biggest problems needed the simplest solutions. Give me 10 minutes to pack my tools, Jack said. Journey to the heart of the galaxy. The interior of Astra's ship was like walking through a dream. The walls were transparent, showing the stars outside. But they also showed things that weren't visible to normal eyes. Lines of energy connecting the stars. Networks of light flowing between distant suns. The hidden architecture of the universe itself. Astra stood at the center of the ship's bridge. If it could be called that, there were no controls Jack could see. She simply thought, and the ship responded, moving through space faster than anything humans had ever built. This is the network, Astra explained, gesturing to glowing lines visible through the walls. Every star connected to every other star. Energy flowing where it is needed. It took my people 1,000 years to build. It was supposed to last forever. Jack studied the patterns. Even to his untrained eye, he could see the problems. The energy flow was uneven, stuttering. Some connections glowed bright, while others barely registered. It reminded him of an electrical grid with bad wiring. Where are the nodes? He asked. The connection points? Astra looked surprised. You can see them? Not exactly, Jack admitted. But systems like this need physical points where the connections come together. Transformers, in electrical terms. Places where the energy is redirected and regulated. We call them anchors, Astra said. There are 10,000 scattered across the galaxy. Most still function, but barely. The central hub controls them all. If we can repair the hub, it can send repair signals to the anchors automatically. The system was designed to fix itself. It just needs someone to restart that process. She brought up a holographic display showing the galaxy. At its center, a massive structure pulsed with dying light. That is the hub, the first thing my people ever built. It predates most of the stars you see around you. Jack whistled low. How big is it? Large enough to hold your entire solar system inside it, Astra replied. It is not just a machine. It is a testament to what my people once were, before we grew proud, before we forgot that all things, even celestials, must work to maintain what they create. The journey to the galactic core took 3 days. Astra used the time to teach Jack everything she knew about the network. She showed him star maps that no human had ever seen. She explained the principles of stellar energy exchange. She demonstrated how the anchors worked, how they drew power from healthy stars and distributed it to dying ones. Jack absorbed it all, his mechanic's mind translating her ancient knowledge into concepts he understood. Pumps and valves, pressure and flow, input and output. It was all the same, just on a scale that made planets look like dust specks. Entering the dead zone. The dead zone lived up to its name. As they approached the galactic core, space itself seemed to darken. The normal stars faded, replaced by the angry red light of dying giants and the cold corpses of stars long dead. Jack felt the ship shudder as they entered the gravitational fields. Even with Astra's advanced technology, the forces here were intense. Black holes dotted the region like landmines, their event horizons distorting space and time. Stay calm, Astra said, sensing his tension. I have navigated these paths countless times. The dead zone only kills those who do not know its secrets. She guided the ship through a maze of gravitational wells, each turn precise and perfect. Jack watched in awe as they threaded between collapsed stars and newborn black holes. This was like nothing he had ever experienced. This was flying at a level humans wouldn't achieve for thousands of years. Then he saw it. The hub. It was impossible. That was Jack's first thought. Nothing that size should exist. It looked like a sphere at first, but as they got closer, Jack realized it was actually a shell. A hollow sphere surrounding a captured star. The star's light shone through countless openings in the shell, creating patterns that changed constantly. The heart of the network, Astra said softly. Inside that shell is the oldest star in the galaxy. We built a hub around it, using its power to energize the entire system. As long as that star lives, the network can function. But look closely, Jack. Do you see the problem? Jack did. The shell was cracked. No, not cracked. Fractured. Huge pieces of it were missing or hanging loose. The light from the central star shone through gaps that shouldn't exist. And more importantly, the energy patterns were wrong. Instead of flowing smoothly, they stuttered and sparked. Something broke it, Jack said. Something big. The plague that killed my people, Astra confirmed. It was not a disease of the body, but of energy. It infected our technology, corrupting everything we had built. The hub was the most complex machine we ever created. When the plague reached it, the damage was catastrophic. She brought the ship closer, and Jack could now see details. The hub's surface was covered in markings, symbols from a dead language. But between the symbols were access ports, maintenance tunnels, and what looked like docking bays. We will enter through the service entrance, Astra said. The main gates require a full celestial crew to operate, but the maintenance access was designed for smaller teams. Even a single worker, if they knew what they were doing. The ship glided into a tunnel barely large enough to fit. They traveled to the hub's outer shell, passing chambers and corridors that hadn't seen life in 10,000 years. Emergency lights still flickered, powered by backup systems that had outlasted their creators. Finally, they emerged into a vast open space, the inner surface of the hub. And there, in the center of everything, blazing with light that hurt to look at, was the captured star. Inside the ancient machine, Jack stood on the inner surface of the hub and tried to process what he was seeing. The scale was beyond anything human. The entire construction was bigger than his home solar system, and every surface, every wall, every structure was covered in technology so advanced it looked like art. "Where do we even start?" he asked, feeling overwhelmed. Astra pointed to a structure that rose from the inner surface like a tower, the control center. That is where the hub's main processors are housed. "We need to access them, diagnose the damage, and hopefully find a way to initialize the self-repair sequence." They made their way across the inner surface. Gravity here was strange, pulling in multiple directions at once. Astra moved with ease, but Jack had to concentrate to keep his footing. The suit she had provided helped, adjusting their fields to compensate for the gravitational chaos. The tower was massive up close, covered in the same strange symbols Jack had seen outside. But it also had something else. Interfaces, control panels, things that looked almost familiar. "Your people designed this to be serviced," Jack observed. "These access points, they're positioned at heights that match your average size. And the space in between controls follows ergonomic principles." Astra nodded approvingly. "You see, clearly." "Yes, the hub was meant to be maintained. We built it to last forever. But we also knew that forever required care. Unfortunately, we forgot that lesson before the end came." She placed her hand on one of the panels, and it lit up. But instead of the smooth operation Jack expected, the display flickered and glitched. Error messages scrolled past in ancient celestial script. "The plague corruption," Astra explained. "It infected the hub's core systems. Normally, I could command the repairs from here, but the system no longer recognizes celestial biopatterns. It thinks we are part plague." Jack studied the panel. Despite the alien design, he could recognize certain patterns. Power distribution controls, system diagnostics, emergency shutdown protocols. It was like looking at a control board from a human ship. If that ship had been built by gods, what if we bypassed the biopattern recognition? He suggested. "Go manual. Your people must have had physical backups, ways to control the system if the automation failed." Astra's eyes widened. "The maintenance tunnels. Of course, we can access the core systems directly through the service passages. It will be difficult, dangerous even, but if anyone can navigate them, it would be someone used to crawling through ship engines and repair shafts." Into the depths, the maintenance tunnels were exactly what Jack had hoped for. Cramped, dark, filled with pipes and conduits and mechanical systems. This was familiar territory. This was where mechanics lived. Astra had to stay behind. She was too large for the narrow passages, and her energy signature might trigger security systems still active in the depths. So Jack went alone, following her instructions, carrying tools both human and celestial. He crawled through passages that hadn't been used in 10 millennia. Emergency lights flickered on as he passed, ancient sensors detecting movement. The tunnels branched and split, forming a maze that would have confused anyone without Astra's guidance whispering through his earpiece. "Take the next left," she instructed. "You should see a blue marking on the wall. That indicates a critical system junction." Jack found the marking, though the blue had faded to almost nothing. Beyond it, the tunnel opened into a small chamber. The walls here were different, covered in crystalline matrices that pulsed with faint light. "This is it," Astra said. "The backup control node. From there, you can access the core systems directly. But Jack, be careful. The plague corruption may have physical manifestations in there. Defend yourself if necessary." Jack opened the access panel and peered inside. What he saw made him suck in his breath. The interior was a mess. Crystalline structures had grown wild, their patterns chaotic and wrong. They sparked and smoked, energy arcing between them in dangerous bursts. This was the plague's work. And suddenly Jack understood what it had done. It hadn't just corrupted the software. It had corrupted the hardware itself, causing the celestial technology to grow in cancerous, destructive patterns. "Astra," he said slowly, "I think I know what happened. The plague turned your own technology against itself. It made the machines reproduce without purpose, consume energy without function. It's like a cancer, but for artificial systems. Can you fix it?" Astra's voice was tight with hope and fear. Jack pulled out his tools. Human tools. Simple things made of metal and ceramic. Nothing like the advanced devices the Celestials had used. I can try, he said, but I'm going to have to get brutal. Cut away the corrupted parts. Force the system back into its original configuration. It won't be pretty. Pretty does not matter, Astra replied. Only function matters. Do what you must. The surgery of stars. Jack worked for hours, maybe days. Time became meaningless in the depths of the hub. He cut away corrupted crystals with laser torches. He rerouted energy flows with spare cables from his toolkit. He used duct tape and solder in places where celestial technology had failed. It was the strangest repair job of his life. Ancient alien machinery fixed with human improvisation. Advanced crystalline computers patched with basic metals. But it worked. Slowly, painfully, it worked. The corrupted crystals fought him. They sparked and burned, trying to grow back the moment he cut them away. But Jack was stubborn. He had fixed crashed ships held together by hope and willpower. He had repaired engines that should have been impossible to restart. This was just another impossible job. And impossible was what Jack did best. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he reached the core processor. It was beautiful even in its corruption. A sphere of pure crystal, large as his head, floating in an energy field. This was the brain of the network, the intelligence that coordinated 10,000 anchors across the entire galaxy. The crystal pulsed with sick light, riddled with black veins of corruption. But beneath that, Jack could see the original structure. Perfect, elegant, alive. Astra, he said, I'm at the core, but I don't think I can repair this. The corruption goes too deep. Silence. Then, there's another way, but it requires sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? The core was grown using celestial life energy, Astra explained. It contains a combined consciousness of 1,000 of my people, volunteer to give the network intelligence and wisdom. To repair it now, it needs new life energy, new consciousness to replace what the plague destroyed. Jack felt cold. You mean? I must give myself to the network, Astra said softly. My consciousness, my energy, everything I am. It is the only way to purge the corruption and restore function. I am the last celestial. It is fitting that I end as my people's final gift to the universe. No, Jack said firmly. There has to be another way. We can find another energy source. Another. There is no time, Astra interrupted. Every moment we delay, more stars die, more worlds freeze, more lives end. I have lived 10,000 years, Jack. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species evolve from primitive to advanced. I am tired. Let me rest. Let me do this one last thing right. A human solution. Jack stared at the corrupted core crystal. His mind raced, thinking through options, possibilities, solutions. There had to be another way. There was always another way. You just had to find it. Then it hit him. The plague had corrupted the core because it had been designed to interface only with celestial consciousness. It had no defenses against an attack that mimicked their own energy patterns. But what if they changed the core's fundamental nature? Astra, he said excitedly, you said the network needs life energy, right? Consciousness to guide it? Yes, but what if we give it mine? Silence. Then, Jack, no. Your lifespan is barely a century. You would burn out in moments trying to power the network. Not power it, Jack corrected. Guide it. Look, the problem is that the network is too smart. It's designed to think like a celestial, which made it vulnerable to a plague that thought like a celestial. But human consciousness is different. Simpler, less elegant, maybe, but also less predictable. The plague won't know how to corrupt it because it's not what was designed to attack. He could almost hear her thinking. Then, it might work, but Jack, you would be connected to the network forever. Your consciousness distributed across 10,000 anchors. You would exist, yes, but you would never be fully yourself again. Never be able to walk, to touch, to feel physical sensation. Is that a price you are willing to pay? Jack thought about his workshop, about the life he had built in isolation, about the 5 years he had spent running from connection, from pain, from the risk of loss. Then he thought about Astra, about the billions of lives depending on them, about all the mechanics and engineers and builders who would come after him, who deserve a universe where stars still burn bright. Yeah, he said, I can live with that. Part 3, Becoming the Network. The Connection. Astra arrived in the core chamber within minutes. Jack could see tears on her face, glowing tracks of light down her star-bright skin. She carried a device that looked like a crown made of crystal and light. This is the interface, she explained. It will connect your consciousness to the network's core. Once I activate it, the process cannot be reversed. Are you certain? Jack held the crown, feeling its weight. It was surprisingly heavy for something that looked like solidified light. I'm certain. But Astra promised me something. Anything. Don't let humanity forget about this place. Don't let them forget that one of their own became part of the stars. Not for glory, but just so they know it's possible. So they know that humans belong out here among the ancient things. Astra nodded, unable to speak. She helped Jack position the crown on his head. The moment it touched his skin, he felt it activate. Energy flowed through him, and suddenly he could feel the network. All of it. 10,000 anchors spread across the galaxy. Billions of stars connected by threads of light. Trillions of planets orbiting those stars, each one home to countless lives. The weight of it nearly crushed him. Focus, Astra urged. Don't try to see everything at once. The network will teach you. Trust it. Jack closed his eyes and stopped fighting. He let the network in. Let it show him how to see with eyes spread across a galaxy. How to think in patterns of energy instead of words. How to be everywhere and nowhere at once. It was terrifying. It was magnificent. He could feel the corruption now, black spots in his newfound awareness. The plague's remnants, still trying to spread, still trying to destroy. But Astra was right. The plague didn't know what to do with human consciousness. It had been designed to corrupt celestial thought patterns, elegant and mathematical and perfect. Jack's mind was none of those things. It was messy, intuitive, practical. It thought in terms of duct tape and spare parts, of improvisation, and good enough for government work. The plague tried to find patterns to corrupt, and found only chaos that somehow worked. Jack smiled, though he no longer had a mouth to smile with. All right, you bastard, he thought at the corruption. Let's see how you handle some good old human engineering. The purge. Jack attacked the corruption with human stubbornness. Where the Celestials had tried to elegantly quarantine it, he simply burned it out. He rerouted power through damaged sections, overloading them deliberately to cauterize the infected areas. He crashed subsystems and rebooted them, forcing them to reload from clean backups. It was brutal, inefficient, wasteful, and it worked. The plague had been designed to spread through efficiency, to corrupt by being a better version of what already existed. But Jack wasn't offering it efficiency. He was offering it chaos guided by intuition. Solutions that shouldn't work, but did. Repairs held together by hope and determination. The corruption retreated, confused and overwhelmed. It couldn't adapt to Jack's methods because there was no logic to adapt to, just the sheer bloody-minded refusal of a human mechanic who wouldn't accept that something couldn't be fixed. Through it all, Astra watched. She could see what Jack was doing through the network sensors, and it amazed her. The Celestials had been so advanced, so refined in their methods, that they had forgotten the value of brute force. They had tried to outthink the plague. Jack was outstubborning it. Hours passed, or maybe days. Jack had lost all sense of normal time. He existed in the network's time now, where a second could last an eternity and an hour could pass in a heartbeat. He purged corruption from the core, from the anchors, from the connection lines between stars. And slowly, impossibly, the network began to heal. The restart. Jack floated in the space between spaces where consciousness connected to the network. Around him, he could feel the repaired systems coming back online, the anchors synchronizing, the energy flows stabilizing. Stars that had been dying for decades, suddenly receiving the support they needed. It's working. Astra's voice echoed through his awareness. Jack, it's actually working. The network is repairing itself. The cascade is reversing. Jack could feel it too. the weight on his consciousness lessening as the network's own systems took over. He had been holding the entire galaxy together through sheer will. Now, the machinery he had fixed was remembering how to do its job. The self-repair sequence activated. Across the galaxy, anchors began reaching out to damaged stars, sharing energy, providing support. The network breathed like a living thing, and Jack realized that's exactly what it was. Not a machine, a living system, and he was now part of it. "The process is complete," Astra said. "You can disconnect now if you wish. Your consciousness can return to your body." Jack considered that. He looked back at his body, still standing in the core chamber, empty and waiting. He could go back, resume his life, return to his workshop at the edge of nowhere. But he could also stay. He could be the intelligence that guided the network, the consciousness that kept the stars alive. It wouldn't be an existence most humans would want. No physical sensation, no personal relationships, just an eternity of maintenance and care. Jack made his choice. The Guardian. "I'm staying," Jack said. "My body, you can let it go. Bury it somewhere nice if you want. But I'm staying here. Someone needs to watch over this system. Someone needs to make sure it never falls into disrepair again. Might as well be me." Astra appeared in his awareness, her consciousness joining his in the network space. "You would give up everything? Your physical form? Your chance to return to humanity." "I'm not giving it up," Jack corrected. "I'm trading it for something better. I'm becoming the universe's mechanic, the guy who keeps the stars running. That's not a bad way to exist." "You will be alone," Astra warned. "I cannot join you permanently. I must remain physical to interact with the younger races, to guide them as they grow." Jack laughed, a sound that echoed through star systems. "Alone? Astra, I'm connected to 10,000 anchors across the galaxy. I can feel billions of stars. I'm aware of trillions of worlds. I'm the least alone person who ever existed." She understood then. Jack hadn't made a sacrifice. He had found his purpose. The same way he had found purpose fixing broken ships in his workshop, he would now find purpose maintaining the machinery of the universe itself. "Then I name you Guardian of the Network," Astra declared formally. "Jack Rivera, the first human to become one with the stars. Your people will know your name. Your sacrifice will be remembered." "I didn't do it from memory," Jack said. "I did it because it needed doing. Now go. Tell the younger races that the stars are safe. Tell them a human mechanic fixed the oldest machine in the universe with duct tape and determination. Maybe it'll give them hope." Astra withdrew from the network space, returning to her physical form. She stood in the core chamber, looking at Jack's empty body. It had slumped to the floor, lifeless now that its consciousness had fully merged with the network. She carefully lifted the body and carried it to her ship. She would take it to Earth, to the place Jack had called home. She would bury it in a place of honor and tell his people what he had done. But she knew the truth. Jack Rivera wasn't dead. He was more alive than he had ever been. The work begins. Alone in the network, Jack got to work. There was so much to do. The self-repair had fixed the immediate crisis, but 10,000 years of neglect had left countless small problems. Inefficient energy routing, suboptimal anchor placement, stars that could use additional support. Jack tackled it all with the same methodical approach he had used in his workshop, one problem at a time, one fix after another. He couldn't rest, didn't need to sleep. He was a network now, and the network never stopped. He found he could still think like himself, still approach problems the way Jack Rivera would have. The network hadn't absorbed his personality. It had adapted to it. His consciousness brought something unique to the ancient celestial creation, a human perspective, the ability to see elegant solutions in crude methods. Time passed. Jack watched civilizations rise and fall. He saw species discover faster than light travel. He witnessed wars and peace treaties. He observed young races taking their first steps into the galaxy. And through it all, he kept the stars burning. Silently, invisibly, the guardian nobody knew existed. Part 4, The Legacy of Stars. 500 years later, humanity had spread across 1,000 worlds. They had joined the galactic community as equals, earning respect through innovation and determination. Human engineers were particularly prized, known for their ability to fix problems that stumped other species. No one knew why human engineering had such a reputation, but the elder races whispered that it was because of the Guardian, the human who had become one with the stars. On Earth, in a place called Rivera Memorial Park, a statue stood. It showed a man in mechanic's coveralls, wrench in hand, looking up at the stars. The plaque read, "Jack Rivera, Guardian of the Network. He fixed what others said couldn't be fixed." Every year, young engineers and mechanics from across human space made pilgrimages to the memorial. They left tools at its base, wrenches and screwdrivers and laser torches, offerings to the patron saint of those who work with their hands. They didn't know that Jack could see them, that his consciousness, spread across the galaxy, could still focus on individual worlds when he chose, that he watched every young mechanic who stood before his statue and promised to live up to his example. It made him proud, more proud than anything in his physical life ever had. The new crisis. Jack felt a disturbance before anyone else did. Something was wrong with the network. Not corruption this time. Something different. Something outside the galaxy entirely. The anchors of the galaxy's edge were reporting unusual energy readings. Something massive was approaching. Something that made the dying stars he had first worked with look like candles next to suns. Jack focused his awareness on the edge of the galaxy and saw it. A wave of darkness moving through intergalactic space. Not empty darkness. Hungry darkness. It consumed everything in its path, stars and planets, and even light itself. It was headed straight for the Milky Way. Jack immediately sent alerts to Astra. She was the only one who would understand the magnitude of the threat. She was also one of the few beings left who could communicate with him directly through the network. Her consciousness joined his at the galaxy's edge. Together they watched the approaching darkness. "What is it?" Jack asked. "The heat death," Astra replied, her mental voice grim. "The universe is dying, Jack. Entropy is finally catching up with reality. That wave is the end of everything. It has already consumed 100 galaxies. Ours will be next. How long do we have? 50 years. Maybe 100 if we're lucky." Jack processed this. 50 years. Barely a heartbeat in cosmic time, but a lifetime for the billions of people living on worlds throughout the galaxy. People who had no idea their universe was ending. "We have to warn everyone," Jack said. "And tell them what?" Astra asked sadly. "That the universe is dying and there's nothing anyone can do? It will cause panic. Chaos. Wars over resources that won't matter in the end anyway."